Now, with the ipsative, the mean, if we're going to look at it on the bell curve, would be 5, correct?
There is no average when it comes to the ipsative, because there can only be a mean score if there's a normal distribution, and a normal distribution in the middle is the
so
5.
we're not comparing this to any groups. This is purely on a self. But we still use 5 kind of as the middle as an orientation. I guess the line is useless there.
As a personal orientation.
So we have an astrological sign here going from inspirational motivator. I have a 4. Need for upwards to be upwardly supportive. I have a 3, 6, 6, 6. What does this tell us? What does somebody like yourself who's experienced with this kind of model, when you look at this, what can you derive from this?
When it comes to the P.A.P.I ipsative version, the ones that we look at first are the outliers, the high interest ones. And why did they win for you? And I would start exploring that for you, like work focus, need to achieve, need to influence, and leadership role. Just saying those out loud and in sequence already tells a story.
Okay.
So that's a bit more towards your brand. This is important to you. This gives you energy and drive, especially the need to achieve and need to influence, for example. If you cannot do that in your current role, you might get frustrated. And we, especially as psychologists or organizational psychologists, frustration can lead to all kinds of things in the workplace. And it's good to highlight these and to help people to reflect on that. Okay. I suppose the question over to you, what do you see?
That's a classical psychologist answer, right?
Classical psychologist.
That's actually, we consultants, we've taken over that question. Every time a client asks a good question, we say, that's a great question. What do you think? And then we send them they answer their own question, and then we send them a bill in the mail.
Yes.
No, but I understand.
People to reflect.
I do understand the value of asking somebody to self-reflect and put it into context, because these are data points, but they don't give you the full picture in the sense of why do I think this way, or what's going on in my work environment. And I think this is a general statement that can be made. A lot of these models will shift, although it's the same person, will shift over time based on time, maturity, and also the type of work we're working in, or?
Yes. Yeah.
So if I work if I'm working as an independent freelancer consultant, I probably will have a little bit of a different profile than if I was working at the post office. Nothing against the post office, and had a 9-to-5 job, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So this is.
There are some people that just cannot work for others. And if they do, they're constantly unhappy. The entrepreneurial profiles all kind of look similar. But what we have here is, this is just half of the wheel, but we have it broken down again into the OSHA. So we have the engagement, impact, and drive, organizational and structure. And then we have the sub-factors. Organizational and structures need to be organized. The concept of planning, attention to detail, need for rules and guidelines, need to finish. And then we go on to the second part, which is ideas and change. Although I did notice that the German translation and the English translation are not always close, but close enough. Interaction, work momentum, composure. And then we have the sub-factors, ideas and change. We've got conceptual thinker, need for change, need to belong to groups, which I thought was interesting, social harmonizer, need to relate closely to individuals. I thought that was interesting that it wasn't written in there, need to relate closely to others. It says to individuals. So it was a little bit more specific than to others. Ease in decision-making, work tempo. Now, if we look at this second, so we go back to the original, this is the first half of the ipsative P.A.P.I wheel. If we go to the second half, we've got more outliers here. So this should give you, this should make your eyebrows raise. When you look at this one, what does it tell you? Yeah, those are the points that I would start with. Need to be direct, Mark.
Because I have a podcast. No, I actually, that one actually speaks to me. I think if you were to do the classical psychological question and ask me why that is, I could probably give you a lot of justifications for that. It has a lot to do with the nature of my project work. It has a lot to do with me having to integrate multiple hierarchical levels that are lost in translation. And the only way I get people to listen to me is if I'm often very, very direct, which is interesting because if you look at need to be direct, the other one that's in contrast to it, right next to it, right, is the emotional constraint. I shared that with my wife. She thought that was funny. If you were to look at those two without asking me questions, what would be the questions that would come to mind, or what would be maybe some of the thoughts that you would have?
I need to keep in mind that this is the ipsative P.A.P.I,
Okay.
which means that emotional restraint might be low, but it just means that it's not as important as other things.
Okay.
So we need to make that distinction with the P.A.P.I ipsative.
Okay.
It means it's more important for you to be direct. It's more important to be.
So this is where I would like
optimistic.
to be. Kind of my motivation.
Not necessarily. They're just more important than other skills.